Hey, welcome back to the Group Project Podcast. This is episode number 97. We're getting so close to number 100. And I am with Dr. Christine Trujillo. Did I say it right?
You got it.
Okay, so it's spelled Trujillo. And that is it's a cool last name. It's really hard for me to say. So Trujillo. I'm glad I nailed it there. Good.
Yeah, but it's got two L's. Don't forget the two L's.
Double L. Gosh, double L. Even I messed up on this.
No, you got it right. You said it right. That's what's important.
So Dr. Christine is the superintendent of the Gilbert Community Schools in Gilbert, Iowa, which is just outside Ames. And she's got a really cool background here. So I'm going to go ahead. Doctor, do you care if I just call you Christine? Is that okay?
That's
I might
fine.
Avoid the Trujillo as much as I can.
No
Christine,
problem.
cool background. Share kind of your leadership, your background, and how you got to. It's kind of been a whirlwind, back and forth career for you. So fill us in.
Sure. Well, here I am in Gilbert, Iowa, and just loving it. I will tell you, as the temperatures drop, people keep asking me, are you sure you're okay? Because my family and I just moved here from Arizona. We spent 32 years in Arizona, in the Arizona system and school system, and just had a wonderful experience there. And so I started off growing up in Northwest Iowa. So people kind of say, well, welcome home, so grew up in the Lawton Bronson School District in the area, lived on an acreage there with my family, and then went to UNI and was a graduate, go Panthers, was a graduate of UNI. And after graduation, moved out to Arizona, wanted to start my teaching career out there, and got a job in the Tempe School District there, and really started off in first grade and just kind of worked my way into different roles all in the district. And it was just an incredible opportunity. Kind of went through taught different grade levels, was at many different schools in the district. So that was a wonderful opportunity, went into coaching, then assistant principal and became a principal. And then one of the current superintendent at that time asked me to be the director of curriculum. And so moved into that role. And every role I've had, I just completely loved it, because it's always about new learning. And it's what are we learning about? What do we need to know? How can we help teachers? That's what I'm always wanting to know. What can we do to help our teachers? And so went from in director of curriculum, then started a new department, partnerships and communications. So worked in that department and led that department. And then that's when I went to director and assistant superintendent of school leadership, and worked with 23 principals and assistant principals, and just helping them day to day and whatever they needed, and helping support the schools and continuing to say, what do teachers need? And so went through that whole process, 32 years, had a wonderful career there, loved every minute of it. And then from there, the great opportunity, I got my superintendency. I did my master's degree at Arizona State, and then my superintendency and my doctorate over at Northern Arizona University. And so once that happened, started thinking about the role of superintendency and applied at Gilbert. And we said, are you sure you want to come back to Gilbert, Iowa? And not just Gilbert, but in the winter. And so we said, absolutely. And kind of a fun story I always share is that the day we left Arizona to come for the interview, my whole family came, and it was my husband and my son, and it was 75 degrees in Phoenix. And when we landed in Des Moines, it was negative something. I don't know, very cold. So we wanted to be here. So we landed here, and we're thrilled to be here, and have just really been in awe of this incredible community.
Okay, a couple of questions I got here.
Sure.
So your husband has he lived in the north before, or has he just been in Arizona down south the whole time?
That's a great question. My husband is from New Mexico. And so he moved to Arizona, started teaching. He's a teacher, was teaching in Phoenix at South Mountain High School for 23 years, teaching seniors, and said, okay, let's go to Iowa. And so he's spent some time in northern New Mexico where it's a little cold, but he hasn't really lived the Iowa winter. So he's already saying he's a fan. He's ordered us matching hats and, we're ready. We're ready.
Okay.
So it's good.
So your ascension through the Tempe school district. Wow. That's quite the story. I mean, that's a large, large district. Any other reflections on moving your way up from teacher to reading specialist to assistant principal to assistant superintendent? Any other reflections on moving up within a large district like that?
Well, I think I see myself as a learner. I always have, it's the old cliche of lifelong learner. And I just really, I'm inspired by learning and learning new things. And I think that's where that came from. As I would work in one particular area, I would really embrace that and enjoy that time and learn, and then say, I might have an additional impact if I moved into this role and if I moved into this role. And so I spent quite a bit of time in each role. So I really got to know the role but one of the beautiful things, and really it's a gift to me, is being in a large district, is the time where you get to know people. You really know people that have been there a long time. It's fun that families that you have worked with in different capacities. And that's one of the beautiful things that I look forward to in Gilbert, is that as you're here a long time, you get to know those families better and better. And that's what I had in Tempe, and I look forward to it again. Wow. So, yeah.
So you're about 6 months into your role as superintendent. Biggest lessons you've learned, what would those be?
Oh my goodness. 6 months. Yeah, that just makes me have to take a breath a minute on that. So 6 months into the role, I think the biggest lesson is just what we always say is that we really have to listen, right? And that's just natural as a leader. You listen, what's happening, what are people really sharing with you? And, you want to be visible. That's what I believe in. It's what I did in Tempe. It's really just who I am. And how important it is not just to being in classrooms is vital. Being in the buildings is so crucial, but also being at the community events. We loved going to every Friday night football game and stopping in at the basketball. We're just starting up basketball now, and that's happening. And I think that's an important lesson to continue to remind ourselves of. And I think it's also, and looking at the shift from Arizona to Iowa is just kind of a lesson is, how is it different here? You can't assume where you came from is the system that's here. And how can we see that, look at that, and learn from that? And so that's something that I've really learned, is just making sure that we're taking our time, going slow to go fast, and listening as we move forward.
So you did a really good job of talking about some of the transitions, the listening, the being visible. I'm curious, you jumped state lines. A lot of leaders I talk with on this show have been in the same state for almost all their career.
Right.
Talk to us. What did reflect on your transitioning from being in Arizona for 30 plus years, then moving to Iowa? Pros and cons of jumping state lines.
Right. Well, I think the pro is, in some aspects, teaching and education is the same, whether you're in Arizona or whether you're in Iowa. Good teaching is good teaching. And it's important to recognize that. But it's funny how even just as you have conversations, the verbiage that we use in Iowa might be different than it is in Arizona. The example I'll give you is just a quick example of, we in Arizona, at least in Tempe, called our classified employee maybe who works in the classroom an IA. Well, in Gilbert, they're called an associate. So it took me a while to say, okay, when we say associate, what are we talking about? So that it's just some of that terminology that you have to get used to when you transition. And then of course, Iowa school finance, as with every state, is something new to learn. And so, I understood Arizona financing. I knew what that looked like. And so then making that transition to the Iowa finance side is, what does this mean? And how does this terminology equate to that terminology? In addition, one of the things I will tell you that I think is incredible about the state of Iowa is there's so many resources available. I have really enjoyed working with the school administration organization that has helped us, and working with all the different groups that work with school finance to talk to us a little bit about what's happening and what those things mean. So little tips, I would say, if you're asking for a tip, there's two I can think of. One is start the transition to get your certification transferred over. It's lengthy. There's a lot to it, and it surprised me. So that was one that took quite a bit of calling and emailing and getting that taken care of. And then the other one is just this is more on a personal level that I did not consider. When you've been somewhere for a long time, you have established your dentist, your doctor, your support for your health. And it's something that I would have done maybe differently moving here. I maybe would have called some of those health professionals here sooner, because then once you arrive, it's hard to get in and take some time. But that's just a personal side that we've worked through that, but that's a couple things.
So let's talk about the interview process for a little bit. People always want, whether you're going for a superintendent job, principal job, whatever it is, that next step up, people always want advice. Yeah. What advice can you give listeners for who are preparing for upcoming administrative interviews?
I love this conversation about people interviewing because it's something I feel passionate about. I love talking to people about the job that they're interviewing for. What does that look like? What are they hoping to do? And the first advice I always give is make sure you're interviewing for the position you're applying for. I've said in many interviews, and what I mean by that is that people interview for the job sort of that they already have. And it's like, you need to help the panel see you in that new role. So you want to give very specific examples of, maybe if the topic is collaboration, how do you collaborate? You want to give a very specific example of how you collaborate, and then launch that into, and then how would you collaborate in the new role? What would that look like? So I think that's just a little tip that I like to share with everyone. The second thing that I would do is you're talking about moving into superintendency, is really connecting with your search firm. The Grunmeyer Leadership Services are incredible, and getting to know Trent Grunmeyer and the people that work in his organization was very helpful, in the sense that they got to know me, the things that we were looking for. When we were talking about moving to Iowa, we had some things that were important to us, like we wanted to be near a little bit of a bigger city because we were moving from Phoenix. It would have been a little harder transition if we had been at a smaller rural district. And I do have a 15-year-old son and that attends Gilbert High, and wanted him to have that opportunity to be in a smaller district, but also wanted our family to have opportunity to be close by to a bigger city. So I was able to share that with Trent Grunmeyer and with Grunmeyer Services. And then that was something that we would talk about as we talked about Gilbert, Iowa, about how it was a match in that sense. So I think that's a really important piece that when you're interviewing, that's something you want to consider.
So thanks for the shameless plug. Grunmeyer Leadership Services is a sponsor of this show. So they are doing some great things, but you're right. That's kind of how we got connected, was Trent did email both of us and said, hey, let's connect. But such a good point. A lot of people don't know, should I be proactive in my communication with the search firm? And I hear time and time again that you shouldn't be afraid to do that.
Right.
And that's kind of what I heard in your conversation there as well. Yep.
And if I may, the one other thing too is that as you're researching a district, I feel like it's really important not just to know everything on their website. That's what everyone's going to know. I feel like one of the things that I worked really hard to do is to dig deeper and say, what else is out there that I could find out? Are there reports on the state of Iowa website that I could find? Is there something? And then sharing that in the process of the interview somehow. So the interview panel knows that you didn't just take a surface look, that you're really serious about it. And here are some things that you brought to the table that maybe they didn't even know about their own district. And I think that makes for a really nice, consistent conversation to have with a school board or whoever the interview panel is.
My conversation with you leading up to the show, a couple of email exchanges, you've talked about relationships, how important that is. You've talked about that a little bit in the show. What else do you want to say about building relationships coming in new, whether it's coming in new or just in any leadership role?
Sure. Well, I will tell you that one of the difficult challenges in coming into the role is I was hired in February. And I knew that as a family, we wouldn't be arriving till July. And when you live in Arizona, that's a little challenging, right? Because you're not next door. You can't just come and do a couple days. And we did make a couple trips out here, but I started thinking about what's a way I can start connecting with people, even, across state lines, if you want to call it that. And so one of the things that I did that I wanted to share with you is just created a postcard that said, "Hello from Arizona," and wrote a handwritten note to turned out to be 267 employees. I didn't think the list was going to be that long, but got all those done. It kind of turned into a family event. My husband and son were putting stamps on them and getting them in the mail. And I will tell you, and I just said, looking forward to meeting you, looking forward to working together, see you in July, just a quick note. And that really set a tone that I'm so thankful that I took the time to do that, because when I started here in July, I had person after person say, "Hey, thanks for the postcard." Or when I got your postcard, I thought, I don't know anybody in Arizona. And what is this? And who is this? And so it was a real, conversation starter. And even now I walk into a classroom or into an office and somebody has their postcard hanging on the wall, and that means a lot. That's where relationships started. In addition to just the connections you make on an interview team and as you get to know people. And so from there, as soon as we arrived, I worked with our governing board, which is an incredible group that are just such a dedicated group that really said, here's some important people that you might want to reach out to. Here's some important people that have been in Gilbert a long time. The mayor of Gilbert, for example, John Pop, get to know him. And so I did make an effort to give phone calls or go out and visit and talk to people. That's how those relationships started. Once teachers started coming back, I was meeting with teachers. I was meeting with different groups. That's part of that 100 days of listening that, most leaders do when they go in. And so that was really important. And so as we, move through the school year, it's been great to get to know everyone. And I'm working on it every day to get to know faces with names, and not just our teachers and our staff, but our families as well.
So one of the things we talked about before the show was your district has dealt with some adversity here this year. And you said you wouldn't mind kind of sharing a little bit. Just share maybe how the adversity that you have gone through, and maybe how your relationships that you built have helped you work through that.
Oh, I'm really glad to talk about this. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I would really go as far as just saying that these last few months, we've had some real tragedies, and it's something that a community is never prepared for. And it's something that as I developed relationships with people, I think it helped us as we continue to move through. And I'm going to talk, we have had 2 staff members that sadly passed away. One was a medical, they were both medical issues. Both happened at home, didn't happen at school. One was a teacher that was very connected with our students, and she had a medical situation and sadly passed away. So it was lived in the community. And, and it's just such a tragedy for an entire community to grieve the loss of an important person and someone that had such an impact. And so, those relationships were really important and are really important. And then we had one of our wonderful, he was a coach. He was our keynote speaker at graduation last spring, one of our bus drivers over time that sadly passed away as well. And so helping families through that and our students through that was very difficult. The other piece that has been extremely tragic is in the last couple of years, Gilbert has had death of a couple students by suicide, and it's difficult to talk about. And it is something that's so important. We're all talking about social emotional learning for students. What can we do to help them? And I think it's really important that we bring that to the forefront so that we can talk about it. We have worked with different groups. Social emotional learning was something that Gilbert, we put in place right away. When I arrived in Gilbert, we had some things already in place that we were bringing in groups, speakers from NAMI to work with our students and to work with our staff. And then going through this, it's just really important. So the relationship piece, going back to your original question, has been really important, because also what has come forward is we've had parents who are medical professionals who work in the mental health field that have provided support to our students and to our community. We had Dr. Nancy Burns, one of our parents, give a wonderful talk to our community on grief and loss, and it was really incredible. So my point being is that developing those relationships really helps you when you're also there as a community grieving together. And then where do we go from here? So we'll continue to have the conversation about what can we do to help our students? What does that look like? We just had a training yesterday with Move Mindfully. I don't know if you're familiar with them, on just brain breaks that we can take in the classroom to help reduce some of that stress with our kids and with our staff. And so, you know, the relationships are very, very important. The grieving process that our families and our students and our staff members need, bring that together, but also helps us move forward.
I appreciate you sharing that. You know, a lot of times districts, it just happens. You know, you working with thousands of students, hundreds of employees, lots of community members, and those things come up. So it's kind of good just to know the other districts are going through it. And then some of those tips kind of, you know, you kind of brought some general tips for how to navigate those times. So I really appreciate that. That's very helpful. And I'm sorry to hear about. That's just amazing when you said that you're the gentleman who passed away was the one who gave the keynote speech at graduation last year. My eyes kind of rose a little bit when you said that. So
he was wonderful. Well, and let me just finish by saying, and our hearts and thoughts always go out to all the families, our students and their families that have been through that. And then also, of course, the loss of our staff members and their families as well, because, you know, we're just really always thinking of them. So thank you for that.
Yeah, let's talk. You know, one other thing you talked about before the show that I find I love is the idea about coaching principals and coaching other leaders. And I always ask the question, tips. What tips do you have for coaching? Because not a lot of people think about that when they move into a district level position or a superintendent position. What have you learned about coaching principals and other leaders?
Well, I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, which is coaching is about listening. And, you know, my coaching passion really started with, you know, I think it was cognitive coaching back in the day, where it really got you thinking about how can you help support this person and help them clarify their own thinking. So I would add as a tip is planning. You need to, if you don't always have the opportunity to plan, but think about what it is that you want to talk to this person about and what they want from you. And that planning comes questioning strategies. What questions can you ask them to help clarify their thinking or help them get to where they're trying to go? And really thinking about how you're asking those questions, because I think it's listening to what they want and then being clear on your question that you're asking, because oftentimes people think it's a gotcha and that's not its intent ever. And so it's really to think about that. The other thing with coaching is always consider the location of the coaching. You know, we often bring them into the office and come see me, right? And so changing the location, I think really changes the temperament or the mood of the conversation. So going into their classroom, say, hey, I'll just pop by, I'll sit down with you. That changes the conversation. So the planning, thinking about the location, and then really, I think the third thing is just staying current on, you know, educational trends, which includes what coaching looks like. Because coaching has changed over the years as it relates to how we can help support people in the classroom. And I think being mindful of that is really important. So you want to be reading about coaching.
I love both those tips. I love how you've like re-emphasized listening. I completely agree. Do you have, and I didn't ask you this ahead of time, is there like one or two really good questions that are your kind of your go-to questions in coaching sessions? Any ideas you got for us?
How did you know that I would have those? How did you know? Sure, I will give you my favorite one. And that is really, you often hear teachers or educators say, well, I need support. They just put a period on the end of that. Or you don't support me. That's another one you hear, right? So my favorite question back is, what does support look like to you? I love that question. And the reason I ask that is because it might be different for them. As a leader, I might think I am supporting this person all the time. Well, I might be supporting them, but through my lens, not through their lens. And oftentimes I will give you this tip. People can't answer that right away. They say, I don't know. I don't know. And I always say, that's okay. Go home, think about it, take a couple days and think about, what does support look like to you? Come back and share that with me, and I'll be happy to provide that if I can. So that's one that I really, really love. The second one that I have is really pretty common, but it's so important and we often forget it, is, what did you hear? What did you hear? At the very end, what did you hear? Because often when you're in a coaching session, it's very common for all of us. They heard you say, this might be different or this might be different. They didn't hear you say, here are the 3 things you're doing incredibly. They always leave those off. They're like, I didn't hear, and sometimes I have to push a little more to say, okay, what was a positive you heard? Just to be more specific. And that seems to really help wrap up the session as well as help them walk away with those positives.
I like that. I like that. Okay, you've talked a lot about some professional practices that you use. Is there one other professional practice that you use that you would recommend to others?
Well, I think it is. I talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but it's about being visible. And so, I think you just cannot underestimate how important it is to be in the community, to be in classrooms, to be in hallways, to be in the cafeteria. I just think that that is a really important professional practice. When there's professional development going on, sitting in on professional development so that you're, you might not be able to be there the whole time, but you're there enough to hear what the teachers are hearing and what they're going through. And it's just something that I feel really strongly about. And if we're going to continue to have that teacher's heart, as a leader, then I need to be in their office, if you will. I need to be with them where they are and listening, and really, we could say open door, but you don't need an open door if you're out and about talking to people. And so, and not just in the schools, but out in the community as well. Gilbert's such a wonderful community and there's so many opportunities to meet people. And so I really believe that's really important.
You seem like a lifelong learner, a reflective person. Let's go back to now. I don't know if you'd have been a doctor 10 years ago or not. When did you get your doctorate?
Just in the last 4 years, 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to go back to 10 years ago when you were Miss Trujillo. I'm guessing you were married at that point, but not the doctor, right?
That's right. That's correct.
Okay. What's one belief then you had 10 years ago that you were certain you had? I'm certain about education or learning or teaching, whatever it is. But now maybe 10 years later, that idea has changed. What would one thing be that has changed these last 10 years?
I'm going to circle back to the coaching idea since we've been talking a lot about that. Coaching has evolved, and there was a time when we did what was called in and out coaching. And so we would take a team of people and go to their door and we'd step in and watch them coach. And then somebody would take over the class and we'd pull them out, the teacher out, and we'd have this little coaching moment in the hallway. It was really wonderful. And I did feel at that time it was powerful, right? Mm-hmm. But 10 years later, I look at that in reflection and say, I'm not sure that was the best way to go. We want to have the conversation with people about the things that are going well, but at the same time, that's a lot of disruption for kids. So really how we coach has changed over time. Part of that is because of COVID and coming out of COVID, I will say, because it's also taught us that right now, I have an expectation that leaders are instructional leaders and they understand instruction and what's happening with that. But I also know our teachers are under tremendous pressure. And so coaching looks different now because of that. We do need to be out and about in the buildings. We do need to be walking through, but coaching today looks different than it did 10 years ago. And I would even stretch to say it looks different than it did 3 years ago, just because of the transition that we've been going through.
We've talked about a lot of topics here. It's been great. So I got so many different notes I've gotten written down here. Is there anything before we move on to kind of just some fun questions to end? Is there anything else that you want to make sure that we covered that we have not yet?
I don't think so. I really appreciate the different topics. I mean, that's, to me, the different topics we've had is really what the superintendency looks like. There's so many different topics that you deal with day to day. And it's just such a wonderful opportunity. It's one of the many reasons I love the position, is because, 1 minute we might be talking about the grass on the ball fields, and the next minute we're talking instruction, and then we're talking about, hiring someone. And so it's just our conversation today, I feel like really reflects the superintendency as it is. So, in leadership in general. So thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
So if you're joining us late, this is episode number 97. I'm with Dr. Christine Trujillo, Superintendent of Schools at Gilbert Community Schools, just north of Ames, just north of Ames, Iowa. I was just fascinating to listen through your progression in the Tempe schools there, teacher to reading specialist, assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and then back home here to Iowa. So, okay, I've got about 8 questions here for you before we get you out of here. So if listeners are visiting Gilbert, and maybe first of all, give us a little bit more context. I keep saying north of Ames, maybe say how close, where you are logistically, and then what's one place you've got to check out?
Absolutely. Well, you're right. We're just north of Ames, just by 6 miles. I think it's really short, and it's right there. It's wonderful. Gilbert, Iowa is a wonderful place. So many kind, wonderful people. The Gilbert district has been around for many, many years. And so it is an honor to be here as the superintendent. So let's talk about, I'm going to give you 2 tips.
Okay, sounds
all right.
good.
Here's the first one: to eat and one to work it off. So
all right.
Downtown Gilbert is a wonderful shop called The Vault. And it is a cafe that's open Thursday through Sunday from 9 to 3. They have a different menu every week, and it's an old bank. It is the coolest place. It's small, so you got to either take out or go in and just find a spot. But they do such a wonderful job with these menus, different every week, and the food is fantastic. And we love going down to the Vault. So you need to go there. So that would be one I would mention. We go there almost every week. But and then the other great place is Hayden Park is right here, and it's a beautiful lake with a wonderful walking path all the way around it. I think it's 3.2 miles if you do the whole walk, and it just gives you an opportunity to just see nature and the different wildlife that's out there, and it's something that I just think is extremely special. So those are the 2 places I'd recommend you check out.
Cool. I'm on the Facebook page of the Vault right now, and man, last week they had some what was it? Oh, I just missed it. Some French toast that looked amazing.
Yeah,
French toast sounded amazing.
They did, and then they had a taco salad with chorizo on it, which I also would recommend.
Oh man! All right, we are for those of us, we are approaching the dinner hour here, so it's getting this looks really good. Okay, what is one, we talked about this before the show, I'm excited to hear what your answer is. What is one sneaky good under the radar purchase you have made that has most improved your life?
Well, I don't think this is going to surprise you. You might surprise me that I fit it in here, but it's really, I would say, note cards. Postcards. And that might be a strange answer, but the reason is I love to write a personal note to people. And sometimes when you get a bigger card, there's a lot of space and it can be intimidating. A small little note, writing a personal letter to someone, goes both ways. I love sending them out, and I know people enjoy getting them. So that's my one piece that I really enjoy. I like to make people smile. And if that's one way it does it, that's my one item that I like.
I love that. Okay, now let's go back to note cards. anything special with your note card? Like just because I do postcards a lot. I love what you're saying. I love it,
Yeah,
love it,
yeah,
love it.
yeah.
Anything special with the note cards?
Not really. I mean, I just right now, for example, we're using Gilbert note card, so it's got the big G on it,
Love it.
and so there's some recognition there when they say, if they don't know who Christine Trujillo is, maybe they'll put it
Sure.
together. And then I just try to put a note in there. I try to be mindful of things that are happening not only in our district but throughout the community. And I know it means a lot when I receive one from someone, and I want to do that for others. So that's what I do.
Cool. Okay, here's a unique one. I have a chance to ask sometimes. I'm going to ask it today. Do you have a good a phone app that has positively impacted your life?
Oh my goodness, I think that's a hard one. Of course, I would always say my photo app, right? Because it's got all my photos and all my family, and that's the one that I really love. But the other one I would say is Spotify. Music brings such joy, and there's so many different times at different moments. Sometimes you're kind of in that maybe, just a quieter mood, and other times you want to jazz it up a bit and put something high energy in there. So it's my Spotify app that I use every single day. So.
Okay. So I got to ask you, this is off the top of my head here. So I'm putting you on the spot. So I don't know if you know, like Spotify just like sent people like their top songs or top artists of the previous year.
Yes.
I'm just curious, what would be your top, what's your top list? Maybe you don't have that right in front of you, but what would be the top, what are you listening to?
Well, I always, if I'm in just kind of that quieter mood, I love Adele, of course. I love Nora Jones. I love James Taylor, that's kind of my vibe. And then when I want to kick it up a notch, I'm listening kind of that late 80s, upbeat music. So it just depends, on what's out there. But oftentimes those will come up and I'm like, oh, I recognize this one.
I feel like Adele, man, she's all over the place now. Did she just release an album or something?
She did.
Okay.
She did. And then also, if you haven't seen the clip she was giving a concert where she thanked her teacher from middle school.
Oh, yes.
And the teacher was there and came up, and the impact the teacher had, it was incredible. So it's a really great segment to show teachers. I do love to show video clips also any chance I get. So inspirational video clips.
Yes.
Staff and teachers.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So Gilbert, I always ask this question. I'm going to play a little dumb because I think I know the answer, but what is like the major gas station convenience store in Gilbert?
Oh, it's Casey's, all about Casey's.
I always ask this question, and I've changed it slightly. If you're going into Casey's and you are going on a road trip and you are hungry, you're famished, you are hangry right now, what's the 3 items you're going to grab at Casey's? 3.
Well, one is going to be an iced tea. I'm going to tell you that, with kind of a fountain iced tea with the crushed ice in there. Got to have a nice cold drink. So I love that. And if you're really hungry, you've got to have a piece of Casey's pizza. It's just required when you're there. And then when you work your way up to the counter, there's those little scotcheroos right there. Those Casey's scotcheroos. You got to grab them.
Yes.
Now, if you're not feeling all that, the other thing, of course, I always have to grab when I'm feeling about being a little healthier is a good protein bar, good Quest protein bar.
Quest,
so,
yes.
Okay,
what flavor is your favorite of Quest?
Chocolate chip cookie dough, because it's very low sugar and a little more protein, but low carbs, low sugar. So that's my favorite.
I've had these conversations recently with a lot of people. And you're nailing like the things that come up all the time. The pizza's awesome. The scotcheroo, like the plastic with the scotcheroos.
Yes.
Yep. And then the Quest bar is crazy. You're like reading my mind right now. Okay. Can you recall, the next question is, can you recall a job you applied for, but did not get?
I can. When I was breaking into administration, I was a reading coach. I started my career teaching at Nevitt School in Tempe. It was the Tempe School District, but it was actually in Phoenix. And they had an assistant principal job open. I was convinced this was the job for me. Because I started my teaching career there, I kind of had the whole, I'm going home. I should get this job. And then I did not get selected. And so what happened is one of the gentlemen that was in the interview team, he was a principal at Holdeman School, another school in our district, and he hired me as the assistant principal. He was Robert Pellegrino. We'll give him a shout out. He was an incredible principal that just really taught me what it looks like to be a leader. And it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me, because I learned from him, and I still consider him a life mentor. He and his wife, Joy, have moved back east since then, but really an incredible person. So didn't get the Nevitt job, was very disappointed. Turned out to be the right thing as I took on the new role over at Holdeman.
We've asked this question probably like 50 times, and every single person, like nobody has said, everybody has said it turned out everything happens for a reason, and it turned out. So I just want listeners to know that, because a lot of people, it's going to be hiring season here for administrators here in the next few months. And a lot of people get so bummed, myself included, when I didn't get a couple jobs, about like lose confidence and it's just not meant to be. Maybe I should just get out of educational leadership altogether. Like, it is all meant to be. Just be patient. The right job will come. I love that.
And it is also about the fit. You have to really believe in that. And that is really hard for people to be okay with, because you want to go to a place where they're excited to have you, so that it's a good fit for all of you. So it is meant to be, but it's also the part of that meant to be is that we see things collectively together, which will help us move forward. So it's good.
What is your best tip for being productive?
I think the best tip for me is I need to carve out of the day a little bit of quiet time, so that I can then go 150 miles an hour. So for me, I get up a little bit early. I have a little quiet time with my coffee, thinking about the day. That is my way of having a more productive day. And so I would encourage people, and really what that's about is self-help, take care of you so you can go out the rest of the day and take care of everyone else.
So let's talk about, you mentioned you've got your coffee, you're just thinking about the day. Anything, you've thought about this a lot. So anything specific during that quiet time that you're doing?
Well, it's really reflecting on, I do think about, okay, what's my calendar? What's on there today? I just kind of start processing the day. What's that going to look like? And that helps me just be prepared for the day. And like I said, it allows me then to think about who I'm going to interact with, sort of that pre-planning, as we would say in teaching, it's that planning that we do so that we're ready to just hit the ground running. And that's what I like to do. And it just gets my day going. So
cool. What is one big goal you are currently working on?
I would say one of my big goals is continue to get to know people. I'm trying to put faces with names. My goal is I'd love to know every student's name. I want to know every parent's name. I look forward to that. As I went to a basketball game last Friday, as parents were walking by, in my head, I was saying their name. So I was like testing myself. And,
nice.
So that's a goal that I have, because I think that just brings people together, getting to know people, getting to know about their families. That's something I'll just continue to do. And I look forward to a year from now when I'll know many more than I know now. And so that's one of my goals. So the other one that I would just say is that I continue to be a reader and a learner about, okay, what's going on educationally, and what can I do to continue to learn? So I really do feel strongly that we have to know what's going on ahead of what is happening in front of you.
I forgot the book question.
That's my favorite question.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe, I was like, I know I'm missing something. Okay. Yeah. What is one book that has greatly influenced your life?
Well, you know me already, Jared. I can't just say one. I've got to say two, and maybe even three, because I love books.
All right, do it.
So first one I would say is Simple Abundance, which this is kind of when you ask what do I do in that quiet time in the morning, it's called A Day Book of Comfort and Joy. It's older. It's been around a while, but I'll tell you why I love it. It's really finding your joy. It is vignettes. if you will, by date. So, and my father gave it to me, which is part of the reason it's so special to me. He's since passed away. So you open it up to the date, and there's a short vignette in there about things to think about in the day and how to find joy in your day. And that just really speaks to me. And I might read it every day for a couple of weeks, and then you put it away and you open it up a month later, right on that date. And again, it helps you find your joy in the day. So that's my one when you talk about that quiet time. The other one that I love so much is My Beloved World by Sonia Sotomayor, Justice Sonia Sotomayor. That book is full of hope, and it has the most incredible, inspiring story. I did not really know her story. And this is just, I had the opportunity to, I did it backwards. I went and saw a speech that she gave, a talk that she gave in Arizona. I was so moved by what she shared and how she shared it, what trials and tribulations she's been through, and how her life, she just kept moving forward through her life to get where she is now in the Supreme Court, that I was so enamored by that then a friend of mine gave me her book. And then I read her book, and it was just incredible. And the inspiration that we took a group of students with us to that talk, and for students to see her, and for the message that she was giving of no matter what your circumstance, you can persevere and overcome based on the goals and the people around you. And to give that message to kids, and the kids really understood that, was just so moving. And her book is equally so. So it's something that I really love. And then I love children's books. So I could name 100 children's books, but I'll just go with Jamie Lee Curtis, which is kind of funny that she wrote a book, but she wrote a book called Tell Me Again About the Night I Was Born. And that's just a really incredible book about a story of how a child came into this world and came to a family, and families are made up in all different ways. And so I love that story. So
cool. I like getting book ideas, and those are some unique book ideas for sure. So
I'm
not
all
your
over the
normal
place.
like Jim Collins and Simon Sinek. So thank you.
Well, I love Simon Sinek. I love Brene Brown. I love,
Sure.
but you've heard those. So I
Sure,
wanted to
I like it.
bring you some others that I love.
I like it. Hey, is there anything else? And thank you for bringing us back to the book. I knew I was missing something. Is there anything else we didn't talk about that you would like the audience to know before we let you go here?
No, I just really appreciate the opportunity. I think the conversation about leadership is so important, that we keep talking about leadership, and really about that collaboration, that leaders need to spend time together to collaborate and to share with each other about, hey, what's working for you? What does that look like over here? I think that's really important. And I think it's something that makes us all better, because everyone's doing the very best job that they can every day. And if we can, be a little bit better by communicating together, I think it makes a big difference. As I said, I'm really grateful to be here in the Gilbert Community School District and in Gilbert, Iowa. And yes, I'm going to be fine through the winter. I've got gloves and mittens and hats and jackets, and we'll be fine. But I just really appreciate this role and appreciate this time with you, Jared. It's really great. And like I said, leadership is important. It's important we stick together.
For those of you outside the Midwest listening, we've been through two of our coldest days so far of December. It's been this morning I woke up, I don't know if you looked, I think the wind chill was like 1 or 0 when we woke up. I think we're about the same north, south, the same latitude, whatever we are. So
yes.
It's been a couple cold days. So it's been tough for me as a lifelong Midwesterner, for somebody compared to you, for who's been out of, down in Arizona for 30 years.
The one that's struggling is Harley the dog, where I just let him out. Normally I take him for a walk. This morning I just let him out. I was like, I'm not going out there. So we're all adjusting, but it's great to be here.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again. One more time, Dr. Christine Trujillo. I hope I said that right.
You did.
With 2 L's, the superintendent at Gilbert Community Schools. Thank you so much. You shared lots of cool ideas here. I cannot wait to get this posted and shared so people can learn from your experiences and all the different things you had to share. So thank you so much. I'll let you get going there. And keep up the great work. Let's keep in touch, and
yes, let's do.
Gilbert is, I should know your mascot. What Gilbert, the,
We're Tigers. Gilbert
I thought you
Tigers.
were the Tigers. God
Yes.
dang it.
Go
I was gonna say,
Tigers.
go Tigers, go Tigers,
That's
right?
Go Tigers. Yes, I have a lot of Tiger gear and I love it. So we're
Cool.
red, black, and white, and go Tigers. But thank you so much. I appreciate all your time and I look forward to working together in the future if the opportunity comes up.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good night.
Thanks.